Ooh, that's a pretty picture.
The test getting back.
Hey, you're being nosy. Probably not much good at that, because it doesn't have very good grades. I know. It's just plenty one, I probably won't give you that one. Unless mommy decides to.
Ooh, I'm getting tired myself.
Oh, this is a book about
There we
swimming.
go.
Well, you worked all day.
Well, I don't know, but it's gonna get tired because it's gonna get colder.
Gotta make sure you look at the clock too.
Yeah, it's gonna drop like the bomb.
8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, it's gonna get cold this weekend, gotta go make sure.
I don't mind enjoying the weather.
Yeah, you don't know if that's
Cause
good.
I ain't ready to winterize and I'm used to.
Alright, see you guys.
Well,
Bye, Doctor.
yeah, they're usually
Probably
done.
go, and hopefully it'll warm up a little more here in November.
No, every time you leave, there's always something good.
There's always something good, bud.
You're not getting complex, right, Jen? Your daughter's like, my dad's not that scary, you don't have to leave him.
Just in the 50s.
Alright, have a good night. Brendan, grab.
Hey, see you guys.
A week. Below freezing and high in the 40s.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be cold.
Playing with that baby over there.
I think we'd be used to it every year, but I'll never get used to it still being pitch black when I go to work at
We
7:30.
have time changes next week. You'll be going.
I'm looking forward to that time change.
I am too.
It'll be
Hey, me, I do.
It'll be dark when you go to work,
It's a public health risk.
Well, it is, yeah. I've taught on, I shouldn't get, I get frustrated. Every time it's time change, I get off on a tangent and start talking about it.
I do too
You know,
sometimes.
Donald Trump said he was gonna try to end it. He said his next
That'd be one of the best things you can
thing,
do.
he said he was gonna try and end it because he said.
I think Donald Trump should start campaigning to keep it.
Yeah, then they would get rid of it, right?
Yeah.
Do reverse psychology with it.
yeah.
Well, it worked for Ben Gadati or
It
whatever.
sure
his name
did,
was.
yeah.
That was awesome.
Oh, we're pulling out of Syria. Pop.
But then he made a statement
Whack-a-mole.
a few years ago that he was going to get that guy.
It is super cool. Oh, look.
You know what's bad is, did you see what Piers Morgan said?
What's it, good Colin?
Yeah.
Piers Morgan, I mean, he's one of the most liberal idiots on the planet, you know?
It is
And he went, what is wrong with this country?
Yeah.
He said, what in the world is wrong? He said he went to the Nationals game, the World Series game,
No, they booed
and they booed the
the
president.
president.
Yeah.
Which, by the way,
On the same day that the president just killed one of the most notorious freaks of nature in the world.
Uh-huh.
I go to the World Series and they boo the man that killed him.
Uh-huh.
He said, what is wrong with you people? He said, this country makes it. He said, and he nailed it. He said, all you can do is just get angry with somebody that doesn't fit your narrow-minded point of view.
wow. Well, see,
Piers Morgan said that. That's
he may
shocking.
actually have a true liberal bone in his body. The true
Yeah.
definition of liberal.
Yeah. Well, he said, you know, right now, he said, especially after the way he described this,
Uh-huh.
he said everybody in Europe was loving it. The man talked about how he cowered in the corner. This is what we love to hear. I mean, the big bully that's been slaughtering people cowered in a corner and cried like a baby. I mean, he said, I was standing in this room and everybody in the pub clapped. He said, how do you...
Yeah.
How do you do that? It's just crazy.
Well, the left is one, if it's one thing, it's consistent.
Yeah. Consistently.
But he should have called the Democrats in the House and let them know that he was doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Should have told them ahead.
I like that part too, because he said,
He's been in the
I
paper.
said, why didn't you tell Adam Schiff? And he said, leaky Schiff?
There's
Leaky
been a
Schiff.
headline in the paper.
Well, they would come out and said, we don't want him to do this. It's dangerous for our boys.
Yeah, somehow they leaked it out.
Yeah. I love that. We called him leaky Schiff. All right, we're about ready to get started again, guys.
It's sad.
I'm going to start with, I gave you a couple of handouts. Well, one was homework, but then I gave you a couple of comparisons. And just a chart, and I don't know, a lot of people probably didn't even look at it, but that chart, it was just in the book and said, yeah, this guy went through all this, and so you can have this, so.
Is your mic on?
Probably isn't. Is it now?
Yes.
Okay. So he said that this is a chart, just so you can look at it, and it's all figured out. I mean, this guy went through this and looked at it. But we started looking at that chart, and there were a lot of mistakes in it, just so you know. The main idea of the chart, I mean, if we look at, there's two different charts there. If you look at the one that, let's say the one that only had 10 examples. You can see there it says, Matthew 1:6, that her that had been the wife was italicized. But when you looked at it in the Bible, the word her was not italicized. So when Acts 5:33 it says cut to the heart, if you looked at it in the Bible, the word cut was not italicized. So these words were not italicized the way that they should have been. I don't know where this fella got. I thought, well, you know what it is? It's probably the old Schofield. I have one. So I looked in it. It was the same. I looked in my Thompson chain. It was the same. Every Bible I looked at was the same. And then there were a couple other errors. On the one that has 20 examples, number 15 down there, no, number 16, it says, Ezekiel 48, 1-7, they use the term a portion for, but they only write the word portion in that. I think to a point he could have been saying, okay, well the altered versions actually had that word rather than the King James, if that makes any sense. So he could have been leaning that way, the guy that wrote this, but clearly it was the words in Ezekiel 48, 1-7, it's a portion for. And then Ezekiel 48, 23-27, it was the word portion. But even when I started looking up, I have a Bible program that has all these other versions. I started looking up the other versions, and a lot of them, they were in there, but they were different. Like the New King James, it just says in and italicized. In the New King James, it said section, not portion. So the only thing I want us to understand from this chart, I mean, there were some mistakes. I went through every one of them myself, and I pretty much came up with what you came up with, but I came up with some additional things because I looked at the other versions. But remember, a man wrote that. It wasn't me, by the way. It was just a man. A man wrote that, and men make mistakes. But the real reason why I gave you the chart was to understand that the italicized words are used in the King James, and these other Bibles are saying the italicized words can just be taken out, but they included them also. That's the main point that we need to see from that. So even though they weren't exactly all correct, they still did have the italicized word or a form of that italicized word in the other versions. And I checked the only version I couldn't really come up with is all of the ones that came out what they call a new copyright. And I don't know if you're aware of that, but like the American Standard Version was around for a long time. Well, its copyright ran out, so it changed some things and made a new American Standard Version. So a lot of the versions that we have just when their copyright runs out where they have to get a new one, then they come up with a new version, just so that they can make more money off of it. But still, just so you understand that the fact that the italicized words appeared both in the King James and a version of them in these other false versions, lets us know that the italicized words do have value, they're important, they need to be retained, and that is that's a very important thing that we can see that. So, if you get more questions about that, everyone asks anything else on that, let me know. I actually found a lot more fascinating stuff out of it. Actually, the New King James is much more drastically changed than he indicated on here, which surprised me. But anyway, a different version's a different version. So we'll look at that a little bit today. And I decided to look at Roman Catholicism in the Bible for a couple of reasons. Mostly because as we're looking at versions, we're going to look at versions toward the end of this, and I'm not even going to get halfway through it, I don't think. So when we look at Roman Catholicism, it has its hand in almost every other version of the Bible, and I think we need to look at that just to understand. These are not people that are trying to get us a version of the Bible that's good and easy for us to understand. They're not trying to do that. Roman Catholicism slaughtered millions of Christians just for the fact that we were trying to get a Bible in people's hands, and they didn't want a Bible in people's hands. It's really hard to lie to people when they have the truth.
That's right.
It makes it very difficult. So they have spent their entire time through history trying to eliminate that. So anyway, so we'll start. We'll have a word of prayer and we'll kind of get started with this. But Father, thank you for the day you've given to us, and thank you for our opportunity again to come and look at this, to study the science of creation, also to study the King James Bible and how to defend it and understand those things. I pray, Lord, that you bless this time now in Jesus' name. So now when we look at Roman Catholicism and the Bible, Roman Catholics are taught that their salvation is contingent on being a Roman Catholic. Now, I hear people once in a while, they'll say, oh, that's not the way I believe. It doesn't matter what the individuals believe, because they can have all kinds of belief systems. As long as they can have their belief system and stay Roman Catholic, they're happy. So they may not all believe everything the Catholic Church teaches, but the Catholic Church does teach certain doctrines. I'm not necessarily going to go through all of those, but I just want to give us an idea that they're not Christian. When I was a kid, as a matter of fact, if you called a Catholic a Christian, they would say, no, I'm not. They were staunchly against that statement. Now they will say, well, I'm a Catholic Christian. They think it's okay to have that, but Catholics stay away from the word Christian because they are Catholic, not Christian. And so that's important. I thought a good example of this came out the other day. I don't know if you knew that Biden went to go take communion the other day, and he was refused. And the priest had said, well, you've given, he said, you gave me communion before. And he said, yeah, but he said, where you're out on this campaign, you've gotten a lot more radical about your abortion beliefs. And he said, and if you don't come in line with the Catholic Church, you're saying when you take communion, you believe what the Catholic Church believes. And if you don't believe what we believe, I can't in good conscience give that to you. I enjoyed that immensely. But yeah, so a Catholic is technically supposed to believe what the Catholic Church does. And that was always a problem. If you remember years ago when Kennedy a lot of people were worried, would Kennedy have his honor to the Catholic Church or to be president of the United States? And they said that no Catholic would ever be elected. Obviously, he broke that rule because you're supposed to be loyal to the Catholic Church. A couple of things. A Catholic apologist, Carl Adam, he says of the Roman Catholic Church, we Catholics acknowledge readily, without any shame, nay, with pride, that Catholicism cannot be identified simply and wholly with primitive Christianity, nor even with the gospel of Christ. So, I mean, that's a statement. And by the way, the Catholic Church has never said, well, he was a little off base. No, they stand with him and agree with him. Pope Boniface VIII made the following declaration in a papal bull entitled the Unum Sanctum, which he wrote in 1303. It is necessary to salvation that every man should submit to the Pope. Every man. If you don't submit to the Pope, you can't be saved. Now, in my mind, that sounds like a cult, doesn't it? That edict has never been repudiated by the Roman Catholic Church, and it is still standard teaching. You must submit to the Pope. These people that are coming out against the Pope, even though they're in the Catholic Church, the fact is, according to the Church, they've got a problem. They need to submit to the Pope. Now, let's compare that to what the Bible says. Ephesians 2:8-9. For by grace are you saved through faith, that not of yourselves, it is a gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. There's no way you can work for salvation according to the Bible. Went the wrong way. Acts 4:12, neither is there salvation in any other, like the Pope. For there is none other name under heaven given among men whereby we must be saved. Romans 10:9, that if thou shalt confess thy mouth the Lord Jesus, and shalt believe in thine heart that God hath raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved.
Amen.
Romans 10:13, for whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved, as long as he's submitted to the Pope. Doesn't say that. Doesn't say that. So the Bible clearly teaches against those philosophies. Catholics are not taught salvation by grace alone. Neither are they taught that salvation is offered anywhere or in any way outside the Roman Catholic Church. Matter of fact, you have to take last rites. One of the things that when I was in the Air Force, one of the things we were taught to do was to make sure that if somebody was dying under our care, we could get a priest to them as quickly as possible, if they needed it. And it's kind of funny, when I was in the Air Force, they gave me my dog tags, and my dog tags said Protestant on them. And I went through all kinds of mess to get that taken off. I had all kinds of people. They had a Baptist guy come and tell me that Baptists are Protestant. But I said, either kick me out or give me a dog tag that says Baptist. But they said, we basically have two kinds. By the way, I have it at home right now. Mine says Baptist, because I would not accept a Protestant dog tag. I'm not a Protestant, and I'm not a Catholic. I'm a Baptist. So, the truth is, we are what we are. They are taught that an innocent baby who dies without having been baptized into the Roman Catholic Church does not go to heaven. They go to a place called limbo, where they will never see either God or their parents. So the baby has to be baptized, or goes to this limbo. And just hangs out. Also, they teach that no one goes straight to heaven when they die. Instead, they go to a place called purgatory, where they suffer until their release. To gain their release from purgatory, they have to suffer to pay for their sins. But also, if a loved one pays a Roman Catholic priest enough money, he will hold a special religious service called a Mass to help him get out early. When I was a kid, I went to a funeral, and I had a friend that was a neighbor kid, and it was a little girl. Her name was Maureen. She, a little girl, lived down the street. We used to play together and stuff, and she died. She had leukemia. And I remember going to the funeral, and the parents were worried that she wouldn't go to heaven, so they paid all these extra masses. And so they stood there, and the priest just had the two of them. And he would say a bunch of words, and he'd hand them each a cracker, give them each a glass of wine, and then he'd say it again. And they did this for like 30 minutes. I mean, it was like 20 or 30 times they did this. The parents were both falling over. They were so drunk. He had to refill his chalice. And the mom told me that they had to pay $200 for each Mass.
Wow.
But they were sure they were going to get her into heaven. As a little kid, I about cried, because I thought, how terrible that you're depending on how much wine you can drink on a platform to get your child into heaven. But that's what they believe. They're trying to get that child, or whoever it is, out of purgatory and into heaven. The Roman Catholic Church has long been antagonistic to the doctrine of salvation by grace. If salvation by grace is by grace, then who needs the Mass? If salvation is by grace, who needs to fear purgatory? If Jesus Christ is the sole mediator between man and God, who needs the Roman Catholic Pope? Who needs a priest? Who needs any of these things? We don't need that, right? So if you don't need it, why would you be a Catholic? It doesn't make any sense to be a Catholic. Also, are there other religions that are threatened by the biblical teaching of salvation by grace? All of them are, and so I want to take a look at that. All of them are. Think about this. All people who believe that salvation is somehow attained by working for it, whether in an organized religion or not, are natural adversaries to God's plan of salvation. They are secretly fearful that they may be wrong. Thus, they seek to do two things. Number one, show their righteousness by their zeal. Anybody think of somebody in the Bible that was trying to show their righteousness by zeal? Paul was a good example of that. He was zealous toward God. He was trying to do anything that God wanted him to do. Why? Most likely, he was pretty certain that he didn't have salvation. He was a Pharisee. He was highly educated, but knew that. But number two, eliminate all competing religions as well as Christianity. Anybody else that disagrees, we better get rid of them, because we don't want people listening to those people. In Ireland, it's the Roman Catholics versus the Protestants. In Lebanon, it's the Roman Catholics versus the Muslims. In India, it's the Muslims versus the Hindus. In Vietnam, it was the Roman Catholics versus the Buddhists. You could go around the world and find more and more. There are religions all over that are trying to kill each other, and most of them believe the same type of thing. But they're trying to kill each other because they want their religion to be number one. They want to be zealous for their religion. They want their religion to be in charge. So these are just some of the ones we know for sure. And of course, we have the Muslims right now trying to kill everybody in the world. They have ISIS, and they have all their little terror cells, and they've got all of those people trying to wipe out the infidels. And that's us, we're the infidels, because we don't believe like they do. All of them are against God's teaching of salvation being by unmerited gift, by the way. False religion has been around since the beginning. I thought I'd put a few things up here. This is one of the things that a lot of people follow. This